Hello and welcome back to the Awakening Philosophy podcast. My name is Jed, and today we are reading Socrates and Jesus, a Dialogue in Heaven. Great. So, what more is there to say? We had a big introduction last time, talking about the significance of these two figures, but also how they could really nicely personify or mythologize two fundamental principles that we are discovering the significance of every time we read something on this channel. That is the significance of the movement from belief-based thinking, or trying to make sense of our world through beliefs, to trying to make sense of our world through understanding. That is really the heart of everything that we're discovering. We're learning what it takes to go through that process as an individual when we do philosophical midwifery. We're learning how to best facilitate that movement as a midwife in our philosophical midwifery as well. We learn the higher functioning of understanding that we are now open to in philosophy. At the moment, we're reading the Symposium. When we are free from our beliefs that cause human problems, what can we do with our understanding? Can we understand things like reality itself? Can we understand the nature of ourselves, of mind itself, of the realm of being? As we read philosophy, we discover that this kind of understanding that utilizes the dialectic has as its proper object this realm of being, not only in a way that gives it its qualities. When we think of understanding, we think in terms of certain ideas: whole, part, same, different. Everything you've ever seen is a whole or a part. Everything you've ever seen is the same or different than something. It's either a one or a many. So all of the fundamental building blocks of understanding are the things that we try to use understanding to grasp, because they are the aspects of being. So being gives us the building blocks of understanding, but it also is the object that we direct understanding to. Because, as we've been reading, that kind of directed focus, use of our wondering, use of our questioning, use of our understanding, prepares our mind to be able to receive the experience of being. And it's in that experience that we can know something. Because that experience, directly experiencing the nature of reality, or mind knowing itself, we call that knowledge. In Greek, we use the word nous. And nous is better because in our everyday way of talking, we kind of talk about things that aren't objects of knowledge as things people know. So it's better to use the word nous. But that's what our understanding, when we are free of our belief-based thinking, can facilitate for us. Actually knowing something. And of course, all of the dialogues that we read from Socrates, he leaves us a puzzle. Hey, what if you didn't just use understanding to reach the direct experience of being, but what if you employed that same style or system of understanding to being in order to wonder about its conditions and causes? In other words, could there be something beyond being? And is that the self? So, and of course, the use of understanding to look back and facilitate the movement of other people from belief-based thinking, making a sense of our world through beliefs, to this better, more evolved way of thinking called understanding. That's how we use our understanding in philosophical midwifery. So understanding solves problems. Understanding is needed to reach our higher goals. And belief is, of course, limited because a nous is not an object of belief. Understanding isn't belief, but belief is the cause of our problems. and we're reading in the Is It All Relative book, the sorts of arguments that people use to dismiss understanding. Everything is just belief. So just don't ever question belief. Just embrace your beliefs. Or rather, try and find what's the popular beliefs around town and pretend to like those. That's how you'll get success. That's how you'll get the job you want, or the money you want, or the power you want. Being able to manipulate beliefs of other people. There's no point in examining the nature of belief. There's no point in developing understanding. There's no point in studying the nature of being. All that philosophy stuff is a waste of time. Everything is a matter of perspective. You can't prove anything, and what seems true to someone is true. And so all you can do is have positive thinking. And if you believe it hard enough, then it will magically happen somehow. So that's a very common belief in our age. So one of the reasons we're reading that book is in order to free ourselves from belief-based thinking, which causes our problems individually, collectively, and as a species, it's handy to look at not only the particular pathologos beliefs we get about ourselves, but the cultural beliefs that surrounded our house growing up, because they influence the way of being of our family. It plays a part. It has an influence on our own particular beliefs that bind us. And one of the most common ones today that we hear is everything is relative to perspective. There is no truth in understanding. Now another, and of course, if there is no truth, how can you begin to find the truth of you, the truth of reality, or the meaning of life? Better just to be a slave to whoever's beliefs are in charge. Appease Trump, as all of the politicians and rich people cry out at the time of recording 2025. It's best to just appease the stupid beliefs of the worst person. Right? There's no point in insisting on truth, insisting on principles, insisting on understanding for all leaders. I mean, we insist on understanding for pilots to fly a plane, and we insist on understanding and for surgeons to do surgery, but we never insist on understanding for religious figures, priests, imams, preachers, rabbis, and we never insist on understanding for political leaders, senators, presidents, kings. Not only do we insist on understanding for people who perform surgery or fly planes or even fix our cars, we insist they use it to benefit the subject. Don't use your understanding to make more money out of me, surgeon, mechanic, pilot. Always use your understanding to benefit the people you have care over, the people in the plane, the car you're fixing, the person you're doing surgery over. Seems pretty straightforward. Why then do we not apply it to kings, priests, and parents? Well, one of the things people say is, well, okay, maybe there is such a thing as understanding. I'm not 100% on this. Everything is just a matter of belief and perception. Things like geometry, sure, okay, you can prove. And how to fix a car, okay, maybe. But when it comes to morality and ethics, religion and politics, then anyone's opinion is just as true, just as valid, just as good as anything else. That's one of the beliefs of our age. Now notice one of the people within that category is, one of the groups is religion. And one of the most influential figures representing belief-based thinking is Jesus. So whether or not you're Christian, there will be likely some sort of, especially if you're a Westerner, some sort of Christian influence on the way of thinking that you have. Some sort of Christian influence on your beliefs. That's worth seeing in order to understand the limitations of it, in order to free yourself from it. So, whether or not you are Christian, it might be worth listening in to what sort of conversation would be being had between somebody who represents someone who's a champion for understanding, Socrates, and somebody who, whether or not he said it himself, someone who's used as a figure to represent and justify belief-based thinking. Just believe the Bible, just believe your priest, just believe what Paul said, Jesus said, and so on. Now, whether or not Jesus actually said that is one of the things we're going to explore. Because one of the things is he didn't write anything down. Neither did Socrates. That's one thing that they share in common. So, super important for all of us to reflect on one of the key figures representing belief-based thinking, which is the cause of human problems, which keeps us as savages, keeps us hurting each other and ourselves, leads us on a train track towards our extinction, and understanding-based thinking. Understanding can solve problems, can use that freedom from problems to take you from health to excellence, and maybe even beyond. So, super cool book. Let's jump in. Let's go. Let's quickly go through the beginning again to bring us up to where we are now. Among the rolling hills north of here, there is a meadow where souls of those who have recently died meet and discuss their former life on earth. It is here that they greet those souls coming down from heaven and up from the house of Hades. After they greet old friends and relatives, tears flow and laughter follows as they share their stories. Then they settle down for the presentation of a play that is not a play. It continuously plays from the beginning for each soul. It can be stopped and started at any time. A soul wishes to pause and reflect on any part of this strange play. Even before the play unfolds, opposing voices are heard that raise troubling doubts and deep concerns about the ideas presented in the play itself. Another showing of this empty play is about to begin, says the chorus. I'll tell you that whatever is said will never get you anywhere. How can... maybe... Here I am. Another showing of this empty play is about to begin, says the chorus. I'll tell you that whatever is said will never get you anywhere. How can anyone claim to speak for Socrates or Jesus? On the face of it, it is arrogantly presumptuous. A dialogue with these two is as impossible, as improbable, as it is impossible. It's going to be as foolish as it will be absurd. There are so many interpreters who claim to speak the truth. The roars of these conflicting voices drown one another out. How can anyone find a single voice amidst all these voices that is true above all the others? These voices may appear sometimes to share something, but their differences are what confuse us true believers. Once you have heard the voice of Jerusalem, who needs the empty chatter from Athens? You may not be able to escape, but we can warn you that nothing worthwhile will follow you watching this play. The best of words is a hollow echo of man's stupidity in trying to comprehend the incomprehensible. Man can never understand his folly because of his own inherent ignorance. Now, super significant considering what we've talked about today in the introduction. Turn this down a little bit. The supreme importance of learning understanding to be able to solve human problems that we play out individually and within our species is philosophical midwifery. And here we have the chorus, which represent believers, saying you can't understand. It's garbage. Man is too stupid to understand. You can never get out of your folly. And to anyone to claim, therefore, that you can understand the way of thinking of Jesus or Socrates is equally absurd. Everything is interpretation, right? Everything is just belief, right? The talking is just confusion. Just shut up and go along with believers. Fortunately, we have an anti-chorus. This button. Here we go. The red team. Put aside your desire to escape and see if there really is something here for you. Let's wait and see what is yet to be said. You believe nothing will come from this, don't you? I'll tell you that everything you hear discussed right here can turn you around to ponder something truly astonishing. Just watch the symphony of words and overcome your chorus of dissonant voices. Awaken your curiosity, and you'll see how well-placed words can dispel your confusion. Perhaps behind your desire to flee, you are afraid of what new fear may come from all this. Could your worry conceal your fear of the mind? All right. So the claim from the anti-chorus to the chorus is, you people who try and silence understanding and don't want to even listen to a play like this, what's behind your desire to silence understanding, behind your desire to hold strongly to belief, could it be a fear? We can ask the question, because obviously beliefs are not learned, they're imitated from childhood, which is why it's no coincidence that Muslim babies have Muslim parents and Christian babies have Christian parents. It's not something you learn, it's something you're born into, because belief is based on imitation. We could ask the question, hey, when parents are trying to, or whoever the parental surrogate is trying to instill a rejection of their own thinking to blindly follow the beliefs of parent and priest and king, does it include some sort of fear? Are fear tactics used? The fear of excommunication from the house, the fear of punishment, the fear of chastisement, the fear of removing away rewards. Hey, we give you a nice cake every time you go to church or every time you go to synagogue. Get a nice cake and everyone tells you what a good boy you are. You don't want that to go. A fear of the afterlife. Do they invent stories like hell and the devil? Interesting. Could that be what an aspect of what is behind human beings' irrational loyalty to belief rather than understanding? Let's keep reading. Bring the group back. Socrates. It is good that we could come together, Jesus, to explore some ideas. The question we were given was, what happened to the gifts we left man? Surely Providence has brought us together, and even now she might be somewhere listening to what we say. Does that mean Providence has a selfhood? Providence isn't just a principle, according to the way Socrates is talking about it, but may have its own kind of life and existence. Providence being a divine care. that which bestows the ideal benefit for each individual, specifically relevant to what they need right now. Jesus jumps in. Yes, the divine moves in profound ways, and it has finally brought us together to answer that very question. What happened to the gifts we left man? While it is curious that we have been asked to do this, there is no ignoring that request. You have engaged in many skillful explorations in your dialogues, Socrates, so why not go ahead and lead this one? I'll follow along and I'll pick up your style of dialoguing as we go. Hooray. That's good, because we know, of course, that Socrates is a master of dialogue, or master of leading dialogue through the art of understanding called dialectic. Good call, Jeebus. It is likely that you are no stranger, Jesus, to Hellenic thought. I ask that because from what I have heard, you lived rather close to the center of Stoic thought. And you also speak Greek, do you not? Yes, that is true. I was born in Nazareth in Galilee, which was part of a culture that was deeply influenced by Hellenism. Hellenism, of course, is the catch-all term for Platonic, ancient Greek, Socratic, Parmenidean thought, Diotiman. So, what we call the perennial philosophy. Not the way we think of philosophy in the Roman tradition, that it's all just a matter of opinions, Kant's opinions, Hegel's opinions, Nietzsche's opinions, Hitler's opinions, and you go to university just to learn how to use opinions to argue your own opinions. Debate. No. A real philosophy is from the Hellenic age, using your mind to know mind, and using language not to argue opinions, but to help facilitate mutual understanding and direct apprehension of truth. Much, much better. So that's Hellenic. And that also includes Homer, which is, of course, someone who talks about dream analysis and philosophical midwifery, even though Plato didn't write that down. So Hellenic thought is very much the love of understanding that we are learning here. So I was part of a culture from Nazareth influenced by Hellenism. We had 300 years of Hellenic influence, and we were bilingual, with the Greek language playing a key role throughout the entire region. Galilee, by the way, had no capital, and, most curious to some, only one small synagogue in Magdala. The center of Stoic and Cynic philosophy was only a day's walk from where I was born. Those philosophers were living their teaching. Their philosophical systems have much in common with what has been attributed to my teaching. Their philosophical systems have much in common with what has been attributed to my teachings. However, neither of these schools of philosophies ever attempted to create a church system. They were content to express their own thought as a way of life, rather than a way of belief. Socrates. Once again, I see that there is a greater depth behind your life and teaching than I had imagined. Did you know that we call Stoic and Cynic philosophers Platonic? They came after me and did their own interpreting. They are without metaphysics, without mythology, and without dream work. Yet for all that, they are still part of our spiritual tradition. Taking a jab at modern, the Roman idea of philosophy. If you don't have metaphysics, if you're not using understanding to know being and the aspects of being we call the eidos, if you're not representing the principles of understanding and being in stories called mythology, and if you're not using that same dialectic to unpack the meaning of your dreams, then what are you doing? Not philosophy. However, the way that we teach people today, tragically, is that Stoic and Cynic philosophers are Platonic, when really they're the opposite. It was during these times that some philosophers took on the name Cynic, but that name, of course, in Greek means dog, and was used by the populace as an abusive and derogatory term. It was also at that time that philosophers were driven underground by the oppressive forces of society. Ooh, the counterattack. As a result, some became secretive, and their teaching became esoteric. Did you get into these philosophers? And what of your interpreters? Here we see him saying, the people who've claimed in our modern time to speak for Socrates and the Platonic tradition are interpreters. And they're getting it all wrong. And he's asking, what does Jesus make of his interpreters? Yes, I did know that. Do you believe that there could be a center of these philosophers living so close and I ignored what is central to me? Before we decide on the meaning of my words, you have to decide who speaks for me. Most have a popular view of my mission drawn from what are called the Gospels: Mark, Matthew, Luke, and John. Apart from these, there are also the teachings of Paul. There is no harmony among these words. There is another set of Gospels called the Gnostic Four. Ooh. They need to be explored and looked at before you decide what my teachings are. It did not stop with them, and since later interpreters went on for many years to create their own version of my sacred work. So lots of interpreters. We have the four ones collected by the Ecumenical Council, who decided what books to put in the Bible: Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. Then, of course, came Paul, who came in and said, did his own thing. And he was a terrible, terrible person who went around killing Christians for a while. And then decided that he needs to be the one in charge. So there's Paul. And by the way, most people think of Christian teaching, they're actually thinking of Pauline, which is a big thing to keep in the back of our mind. But then, of course, there are the Gnostic Four Gospels that were ignored and have been rediscovered more recently. And of course, we know in our modern culture, no one reads any of that stuff really. The preachers, people get most of their beliefs about what Jesus said from their preacher, and their preacher usually just makes it up or copies their own preacher. So every different church has a different interpretation. So it's completely discordant. And if you've ever gone to a different church in a different town or a different suburb, you can see that they think very differently. Some are anti-women, some are not. Some says, women must not speak in church, for that is the devil. And some say, of course, there are lots of women in the Bible who speak. That's very sexist and terrible. And fuck you. Some people will say that being gay is a sin. Some people say it's not. Some people say eating shellfish will send you to heaven, to hell, I should say. Some people say let's ignore that. The same section which talks about that thing, those things talk about wearing clothes with two different blends of material, like polyester and cotton, will send you to hell. And some people say, oh, no, let's not believe in that. But that's the many different interpretations of Christianity that we see going on. And of course, each of the different gospels have a different version of events and a different take on things as well. How can we get to the bottom of what he was really saying? And also we have to do a similar thing of cleaning up the muck of the way that Socrates has been taught since the church shut down the academy in 529 AD, murdered a bunch of the philosophers, sent some of them underground, and said, no more understanding for you peasants, you have to believe me, and I speak for Jesus, who speaks for God. So, since then, we've had terrible interpretations of Socrates. Thankfully, we have the Balboa translation, so we can, the dialogues that have remained, not all of them, but the ones that have, we're able to read them properly, which is what we do here. So we have a bit of a head start because we've been reading the actual words of Socrates because of the Balboa translation. Thank you, the Balboas.
I've been a bad little girl.
Not relevant, Emma. Okay. Socrates. I am pleased we cleared up that point. Now the struggle over who could speak for you has been a lively one. We will need your reflections upon this if we are to understand why your teachings fragmented into these clashing groups. Doubtless your followers were equally clashing with each other, Socrates, as they likely are even now. I have heard that while you have continued your dialogues even here, there are wildly different interpretations of them. I'll trade you my reflections for those you had with your group. True it is, and since my departure from Earth, I have been in dialogues here with Orpheus, Mucius, and both Homer and Hesiod. And then there is Palamedes. You doubtless know of his curious exploits and his divine counterpart. You say, I don't know who Palamedes is, and I don't know who his divine counterpart is, but let's keep reading. Jesus says, you say your group included Orpheus and his son Mucius. Surely that is a wondrous group. I do know of Orpheus as the first prophet among your people, the founder of your theology, and he brought your people to understand the symbols that unlock the mystery. I have heard his oracles covered much, and he left your people with the vision of the ages, didn't he? Ooh, lots of curious puzzles happening there. Socrates continues. You ask a question from a background I couldn't even guess that you had. Then with a smile you drop in something I had not heard about. What is this vision of the ages that you mentioned just now? It should not surprise you that I have known about the prophets and theology, because theology is the study of the theos, the divine. I learnt of this vision from sages I encountered here, just as you have encountered sages in your group. I recently spoke to one who described in mighty words that man's condition is that he is emerging from ignorance and reaching for that intelligible light that brings to birth a kind of understanding that benefits its beholder. Wow. Sounds like Jesus said right then, in a very simple condensed form, the entirety of the introduction that we had today. The condition of man currently, or what we called the stage of evolution we're on individually, collectively, and as a species, is that man is emerging from ignorance. We also included savagery. We are the most terrible kinds of animals. We act in the most savage and fucking terrible way towards ourselves and each other and our planet. Irrational and immature. Caveman-like. Carrying a zombie virus, a parasitic belief that saps our energy and keeps us trapped in a certain way of being. Shallow use of language, shallow use of reflection. So we call it a zombie virus. Emerging from ignorance and reaching for that intelligible light. The knowable experience we were talking about earlier as nous, or the brilliant light of pure being, mind itself. And that light is what brings to birth a kind of understanding. Not understanding how to fix a car, not understanding how to manipulate people to earn money or profit, or manipulate people how to get power. No. And a kind of understanding we call dianoia that emerges from that light, is the shadow of that light, and can allow us to reach that light. And that understanding, as we talked about earlier, we can use to reach that light, maintain that light, or utilize it, integrate it into our way of being, wonder about even what's beyond it. All three of things have kinds of benefits, and the fourth kind of benefit to turn back and help others move from ignorance to understanding through the art of philosophical midwife. All four aspects of the use of understanding benefits. So we were talking about providence earlier. This is how we get providence. This is how we be providence. And of course, it's that understanding we apply to our dreams in dream analysis to get the providence from our dreams. So he said it in a much more simple way that incorporates or encapsulates everything we talked about already. Man's condition is that he is emerging from ignorance and reaching for that intelligible light that brings to birth a kind of understanding. Hey, welcome to the chat. Welcome. Brings to birth a kind of understanding that benefits its beholder. That's where we are right now in history, in our culture, and our individual soul's level of evolution. Well said, Jesus. Indeed, says Socrates. As I listen to your words, I see I have found another person I can reflect with, who will awaken what I most want to grasp. So please share with me this vision that sounds indeed as if it came from Orpheus. What's the vision? The vision of the ages, which includes where we are in our ages. Oh, good question. We are reading a dialogue between Socrates and Jesus that takes place in heaven. It's a play that begins for every new soul that leaves earth after you die, or you come down from heaven, or you come up from the houses of Hades. Wherever you're at, you meet people and you have a cry and you have a laugh at your experiences. But then this play happens. A play in which Jesus and Socrates meet up and they discuss. They are discussing what happened to the gifts they left mankind. We've just started, so you're right where you need to be. Oh, yes. Super, super interesting. And by the way, this is only the second episode, and you can find the previous episode. There's a link to the YouTube where you can catch up if you want to catch up on this or any of the other books that we're reading together on this channel. Hopefully you find something to get curious about and opens your soul to wonder. And feel free to ask questions or leave comments as well. Okay. Jesus then goes in. From what I have learned, says Jesus, the vision was originally sculpted in stone and placed at the entrance to the temple of Apollo in Thrace. It said that at first, mankind was without words to understand himself. Then with the dawn of language came the age of the sages and prophets. And this was followed by the eclipse of that light. And finally, its restoration came with the dawn of the true man. In chat, do I mostly live by Jesus' words or Socrates? Well, in order to answer that, we have to find out what Jesus' words were. Because one of the puzzles we have right now is who speaks for Jesus? Is it the Gospels? Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John? Is it Paul? Most people who are Christian in our modern times are really Pauline. They listen to Paul's interpretation, and he was an interesting guy. There are the 4 Gnostic Gospels that we found recently that seem to paint Jesus in a very different light. And then, of course, the way that people understand Jesus' words nowadays is everyone has their own different interpretation. You go to a different church on a different block, they think of it differently. Some churches hate women. Some say being a woman is okay. Some churches say women may not speak in church, it's written. Some say, of course, there are many women who speak up. Some people say, well, women are the cause of sin. That's why they're bad and evil. Because women tricked Adam into eating the apple. So some are sexist, very, very sexist. Some aren't. No one seems to be reading the books. Definitely not in the original language. And then, of course, you have the different translations. So can we get to the heart of what Jesus was saying? Is one of the puzzles we have here. Of course, Socrates, we can get to the heart of what he is saying because recently we have the new translations of Socrates called the Balboa translations, where we have the actual translations and we have the actual ancient Greek. So whenever you get hung up on a word, we can look it up for ourselves. So we have a bit of an advantage with actually hearing what Socrates was saying. And that's what we do on this channel. At the moment, we've just started reading the Symposium, which is a dialogue that Socrates had with a bunch of people at a party. Symposium means drinking party. They're all getting loaded. Where he talks about his initiation experience. The path of reflection and understanding that he was guided through by his female teacher, Diotima, that opened his mind up to being able to experience the brilliant light of pure being. One of the aspects of that brilliant light of pure being is eternity. It's eternal, it's universal, it's the cause of our physical world, but it's also beauty itself. So Symposium is chasing our love for beauty all the way to be able to experience ultimate reality through understanding. That's the Symposium, and we've just started that too, so you can check that out. Jesus only were protected when people were speaking about God and living like him. Do you protect things that you love? Well, that's the idea, right? We want to find out what he was actually saying and doing. What was his idea about God? And does it match what we can understand? But one of the big questions is, what's the difference between belief and understanding? Because what we just read here is that man's condition is that we are emerging from ignorance. By the way, have you met anyone with ignorant beliefs, sexist beliefs, racist beliefs, Nazi beliefs? capitalist belief? Fascist beliefs? Are those people fiercely loyal to their beliefs and doesn't matter what you say about truth or facts or evidence or reason, they will never change their beliefs? And they will even beat you up or even go to war against you if you're the wrong color? Or you have the wrong beliefs, according to them? Could we call that a kind of savagery that keeps us in ignorance? By the way, when it comes to fixing your toaster, is anyone fiercely loyal about their beliefs of how to fix a toaster? Or do we recognize anyone can understand how a toaster works? It's not a matter of belief, it's just understanding. How do the parts fit together? How does it function as a whole? So whenever your toaster breaks, do you ever go to war against toasters and beat up your toaster? Or do you just reflect and understand? Really, I've met people who couldn't find the truth, so they wouldn't let others help them. Exactly. So we want to know what keeps people fiercely loyal to beliefs which are not true. I mean, maybe sometimes they could be true, but who knows? Sexist beliefs aren't true. Racist beliefs aren't true. There are thousands of different beliefs about morality and God and things. They can't all be true. But we don't have that same approach to toasters, do we? Or how to fix your car. All mechanics don't have belief. They have understanding. They understand how to fix your engine. And they can fix your engine. And if you want to understand, sure, you can become a mechanic too. Everyone can play. So why are we so savage when it comes to loyalty to beliefs, when it comes to ourselves or the nature of the divine or morality or politics, but everything else? How to fly a plane, how to fix a toaster, how to be a doctor. All of these things we're not savages. Anybody can learn because it's understanding. What we're reading here is we are emerging from ignorance, which might be tied to that loyalty to beliefs we got from childhood. My mummy said all women are, or my daddy said all women are bad, or my daddy was a Muslim, so I'm a Muslim, or my daddy was a Scientologist, so I'm a Scientologist. That kind of thing. To reach for an intelligible light, the light of your own consciousness, mind itself, that can give birth an understanding. Now, it's not understanding other things like how to understand your toaster or how to understand how to fix your car, but an understanding of the nature of yourself, reality, and those things we talked about earlier. What it means to be a good person. What it means to share that good or benefit, which might put an end to our ignorance and our savagery. If we are all the same intelligence, then thoughts that women are less than men, or brown people are less than white people, or poor people are less than rich people, all of those ignorant, savage beliefs can dissolve. And mankind can move from an age of ignorance into an age of understanding. Does that make sense? Transition from belief-based thinking to understanding-based thinking. Not only understanding, but using that understanding to directly know for yourself. Not believe someone else. Doesn't matter if they're wearing a funny hat, or they've got curls, or they're wearing a robe. You don't have to believe anyone if you can experience for yourself the intelligible light that brings forth understanding. Isn't that neat? You get to go to the party yourself. Now, of course, hearing that will challenge all the beliefs we get growing up, which is why we also do on this channel philosophical midwifery. Because when we were young, we were taught to believe. That's part of being a human. Believe mummy and daddy. Because they didn't have understanding. Because they're also going from ignorance to understanding. But parents like to pretend they know. Everyone has it. So we also do philosophical midwifery, which is learning how to use understanding to uncover the beliefs about ourselves that we don't even know we have, that limit us or block us from moving from ignorance to understanding. I can't understand. I'm just a small bean. I have to believe other people. I have to believe Jeebus, or believe Muhammad, or believe Joseph Smith, or believe Zeno. I can't understand for myself the nature of reality. I'm just a small bean. You can't have that and also know. You can't believe you can't know because you're a small bean and also know. You can't have both. You can't believe that I'm a rubbish football player and try out for the football team. You have to sacrifice one. And what we are seeing here is what we have to learn how to do is sacrifice what's false, our beliefs that open us up for this movement. Make sense? Now that's intrapersonal. So if that's the case, then this would be the meaning of everybody's life. Not just mine or Socrates or anybody else's. Everybody's. Because that kind of understanding brings benefit. Now, not only is that what we are reading, Jesus also came in to say, hey, by the way, we can recognize that there are ages in our development. There might have been an evolutionary benefit to blindly believing the tribe leader of your cave when you were a caveman, before we had language. So all of these beliefs are tied to a fear and hatred of everything different. Sexists hate women, MAGA hate immigrants, Nazis hate the Jews, the Zionists hate the Palestinians. It's all hate of anyone different from your cave. Tribal thinking, caveman thinking, which cause barbaric, irrational behavior. That is causing all the suffering we experience individually and collectively. So what Jesus is saying here is, hey, when we had a new age for humanity when we learned language. Now we had the sages. Now what we would say, now we have Parmenides and Diotima, people who were able to use language to understand the nature of language, the nature of thinking, and realize that understanding comes from pure intelligence, not belief. And what we use language for, you can use language like Trump to lie to people, or like a banker or a capitalist to lie to people, to manipulate people, to hurt them. But what the good people have discovered is the best use of language is to benefit, to understand the nature of understanding, and use that understanding to help people remove their false beliefs, help people move into understanding, and actually verify their understanding by directly experiencing the pure light of being. And then wonder if we can use our understanding to wonder about what was even the cause of that. What is the self? So, with the dawn of language came the age of the sages and prophets, followed by the eclipse of that light. Now, what we understand that eclipse to be in philosophical midwifery is the counterattack. So when an individual goes through this process, you will have new understanding, you'll have insights, but straight away you'll have that, or very soon after, you'll have a counterattack. The false beliefs that you are carrying that prevent your growth will fight back and try and get you to dismiss your insight. No, you can't know this. You're not the smart one. Your priest was, or your daddy was, or your mummy was, or your king was, or your preacher was, or your imam was. Not you. You're rubbish. Or maybe your counterattack will dismiss understanding itself. You can't understand. No one understands. It's all a matter of belief. It's all a matter of opinion. There is no truth. It's just all perspective. What's true to you seems true to you. Oh no, you're not interrupting. These are good questions. And these are true for everyone. So when you voice your wondering, it gives us a chance to take what we're reading and apply it to what is probably a question a lot of people have. And to point out the fact that when we have an insight or understanding, we all face a counterattack. It's not a personal thing. And it can come up with attacking understanding itself. Now, what we're seeing here is Jesus is saying, hey, that counterattack to insights that we all experience personally as we move through our personal development through the art of philosophical midwifery, that also plays out in history. As above, so below. Because when we had this new age with the dawn of language, there was a counterattack. The eclipse of that light. We call that the Dark Ages, where the academy, the first university in the West, was shut down by Emperor Justinian, who said, no understanding for you peasants. You fuckers have to just believe what I say. I'm in charge. And just believe, have faith. And you can't even read the Bible. If I see you with the Bible trying to read for yourself, I will kill you. And if I ever see you reading one of these philosophy books that gets you to think for yourself, you'll be murdered on the spot. That's a period where everything went to shit. We call it the Dark Ages. The eclipse of the light. Now, what Jesus is also saying is, hey, and after that eclipse of the light of understanding came a restoration of that light with the dawn of the true man. What would be needed to overcome the Dark Ages, overcome the attack, the counterattack on logos, on understanding, the Roman tradition, to rediscover the Hellenic tradition? Would it involve understanding the truth by reading the Platonic dialogue, Socrates talking about how we can develop our understanding to see the truth? Would it also require understanding how to remove our problems, our false beliefs that we face as a species and individually? One is philosophy, the other is midwifery. Would it also include seeing how that has played out historically, which we're doing here? Would these be the three things needed to recognize this eclipse of the light of humanity and to do what's needed to restore true man? If that's the case, we're doing it here, and you are in the right place to be. Hooray for you. So let's hope you have fun and you find something to wonder about, to go through this journey, to restore a new way of being, what Jesus is calling here the dawn of true man. Let's hope that happens. Let's hope the channel becomes popular enough that enough people get on board and we can do it. Otherwise, it's pretty easy to see we're on a fast track to extinction. Socrates. Curiously enough, at our group's last talk, as we discussed not only the power of ignorance and its terrible grip upon man, we also explored the nature of wisdom and sought to discover if it has the power to overcome the worst effects of ignorance. The only popular remedy that was put forward by most was to become initiated into the Eleusinian mysteries. And most agreed that the failure to become initiated kept one in a state of mind we call ignorance. Interesting. Now, what we just said, thanks to our questions from our new chatter, was, hey, in order to overcome this eclipse of ignorance, not only do we have to do what we need to understand and experience wisdom, but we also have to do philosophical midwifery, which is a different activity, which is how to address the causes of our ignorance in the first place. In other words, we all might carry false beliefs that we are not good enough or belief is the only answer. And then we have an experience of pure knowledge, and then we wake up to a higher level of reality, a higher dimension of being. And people who've had that experience, which we call wisdom, they say, oh my goodness, I didn't even realize there was a whole different level. I knew myself. I no longer have a fear of death, these sorts of things. The Eleusinian mysteries is where everybody came together to have an initiation of that experience through ergot, which is similar to LSD. But here's the thing. The people who have that experience through LSD or something similar, are they free of their ignorance? How long until they go back to their old way of being? Do they still have their problems? In other words, is an experience of the truth that might wake you up to a new quest, is it the same thing as addressing what's false? Or do you need to do both? Now, we often talk about Eastern mythology and how there are archetypes of people, sages, who have had this experience of pure being, the brilliant light of pure being, or wisdom, whether it be through something like the Eleusinian mysteries, or acid, or meditation, or chanting, or childbirth. There are lots of different ways. But they still have their problems. Famously in anime, Goku's teacher was called a pervy sage. No, that was Naruto's teacher. Yeah, both Naruto and Goku had people who have had wisdom experiences, but also have their problems. So that's one of the puzzles that we are carrying that we can recognize because we have been doing midwifery here. Knowing the truth isn't the same as removing the problem. It can be a wake-up call. It can be a beginning to your journey. In the hero's journey, remember the story that you can look this up, the cycle of the heroes. Actually, let's do it together. Why not? Easy to do. Hero's journey. Bring it up here. Because Joseph Campbell, who designed this image, met up with the author of the Philosophical Midwifery book, and he challenged him to get into the symposium. And of course, he didn't do that. Here we go. Call to adventure. This is the hero's journey. Call to adventure, supernatural aid, crossing the threshold, beginning of a transformation. There's a helper, a mentor, challenges and temptations, a revelation, the abyss, the death and rebirth, transformation, atonement, and the return with the gift. Or have a different one. What? Here we go. Ordinary world, call to adventure, the refusal of the call. Now, what we wanted to look for is, how does this reflect what we are learning in midwifery? We grow up in home. We all start as Luke Skywalker at the moisture farm, or Harry Potter under the staircase of our evil step parents. We all grow up with beliefs. before we have language, or before we have a grasp of language, and can use it to question our parents. Just like in history, we started off early evolution as cavemen, without language. We have a call to adventure. Now we could say that's this channel. Either this book, or the midwifery book, or any of the books that we read is a call to adventure. All human problems are understandable and solvable. It's your responsibility to figure out how to do that. The injustice you see playing out on the global stage plays out also within your soul. If you want to be a good person in the world, to enact change for good, you have a responsibility to learn that process of solving problems. Philosophical midwifery. For yourself, which then you can take into the world to solve problems. That's the call to adventure. Most people, when they come across philosophical midwifery, will run to the hills. Now that's interesting because personally, I've met the most wonderful people. I've met people who've taught philosophy at college in California, around Pierre Grimes, who know the guy, who know how amazing he is, who know that he is the new Socrates. He's rediscovered Socrates and added to the tradition. Even they find it hard to get into the game. Now, I'm from Australia, so I did everything that I could to get to California. So I found it very confusing because I ran towards the guy. Joseph Campbell, who wrote this, The Hero's Journey, that people who do playwriting or the script writing, they read his books. His model is what's used in most cinema. He worked closely with Lucas in the creation of Star Wars. He ran away from Pierre. Hello, welcome. Alan Watts, a good friend of Pierre's. A lot of people know about Alan Watts from his audio talks on the internet. One of the first Western intellectuals to bring Eastern spirituality to the West. Really interesting and intelligent and well-spoken guy. He ran away from the challenge to get into the symposium. Other figures. If you do psychotherapy at university, you learn Albert Ellis's cognitive emotive behavioral therapy, they call it. He met with Pierre. Pierre said, hey, look, all problems are understandable and solvable. It's not cognitive emotive behavioral therapy, and it's not addressing your physical behaviors. It's addressing the root cause of human problems, a class of belief called pathologos. Why don't you get into it? And he ran away. So, the greatest figures in our culture, Albert Ellis, Joseph Campbell, Alan Watts, even L. Ron Hubbard crossed Pierre's path. All of these people refuse the call. And I know personally people who've come across this channel or come across the book, the midwifery book, or even lived in California. They hear about this. All human problems are understandable. They are caused by belief-based thinking, which can be overcome in the new art, the use of understanding to reflect on ourselves and the cause of our beliefs, freeing us to develop that understanding, to understand the true nature of self and reality and the meaning of life. An understanding that is verified in your own direct experience at each level. That's why we're here. That's for everyone. It's why everyone's here. It's universal. Everyone can play. And it's this which brings benefit or care. When people discover that, usually they run. in the chat, can I ask you about something about philosophy? You may ask questions. That's what we like here. Questions are fantastic. If I'm going to be a good friend to you, I will do my best not to ruin your question, but to add to it. To carry a question is to be on a quest. Now, if it's a question about the nature of understanding, the nature of your being, or the nature of yourself, then you're on this, the hero's journey. If you can see the significance of that question, it will be a call to adventure, but you're likely going to refuse the call. No, I don't. That's not the answer I wanted to hear. I wanted to have this. I was only asking you a question to get this predefined outcome. It was really a scam question. It wasn't my true soul question. Refusal of the call. You might meet a mentor. For us, that's Jesus and Socrates, or Socrates in the Symposium, or Pierre Grimes in Midwifery. Now, there are some people who have the sort of rare courage and character that take the challenge and cross the threshold. Whoop. Now you've begun the hero's journey. You are now Luke Skywalker seeking to master the Force. You are now Harry Potter trying to master magic in Hogwarts. Every story that we have pretty much follows this arc. What we are learning is the true model or paradigm, the actual hero's journey. In other words, you get into philosophical midwifery. You start to read the book along with us, or read the other books that we read here as well. You discuss it with your friends over coffee. You're getting less and less interested in gossip. What's Tom Cruise? Who is Tom Cruise dating today? And you're more interested in talking with your friends about your insights into your own beliefs that block you, or your understanding that frees you. That's what you want to talk about. And you start to ask questions of your friends to encourage them to go on this journey. Then eventually you can return home with the elixir, which is you return home with a new skill. You return back to yourself, free of your problems, with a new art in hand. The art of philodainoia, the love of understanding, the dialect. Now, as fun as it would be for me to reflect on all of the fantastic and wonderful people that I've met along my journey who have refused the call, and how many people I've talked to in my life say, hey, there's this fantastic thing. You can read Socrates now. And Socrates, along with this midwifery book, shows you that every human problem is understandable. And that you should have the problems you have. So your soul can learn something in particular. There is some problem your soul had that caused your human reincarnation. For you to get this problem from childhood, not birth, childhood, called a pathologos false belief that you can remove to develop understanding. And if you develop an understanding, you can awaken your memory of reality, and then even go beyond that to know the self. That's fantastic. You don't have to believe anyone. You don't have to fight anyone. You don't have to exclude anyone, because understanding is for everyone. Literally. Every sentient, not just human beings, every sentient being who's awoken language and self-reflection can participate in the intelligence, the pure light of being that gives rise to understanding. There are no mechanics who say, oh, maybe back in the old days or whatever, women can't be mechanics or brown people cannot be mechanics. Bullshit. If it's understanding, anyone can understand. So if there is a way of bringing together your soul, it's going to be through understanding. If there's a way that brings together humanity, it's going to be through understanding. Beliefs cause division. I believe that women suck. I believe that Palestinians have to die. These are stupid. That's not truth, it's belief. That's the ignorance. Beliefs that we get from before we even had language, our caveman days. Inside cave, good. Everyone like my tribe, good. Outside tribe, bad and scary. Ever talk to a MAGA person? That's how they talk. Or my version of Christianity is good. Those other ones are bad. And those brown people are bad and scary. Dr. Phil told me so. Trump told me so. Caveman thinking. Savage thinking. In humans, there is something called a point of view, right? Yes. The point of view that I'm discussing here can be interpreted. So we've got two things on the table. We've got a point of view, somebody's individual perspective relative to where they are on the hero's journey. If you're right at the beginning, if you're Harry Potter living under the staircase, your point of view will be, I'm bad. I belong here. I'm less than my step-parents. I deserve to be punished. But as he learns to go on the journey to become himself, to become a wizard, his point of view will change and grow. Hopefully he will remove his false beliefs and realize he isn't rubbish. And he will learn to understand his true nature as a wizard, as a hero, as a Jedi master. So he'll have a point of view based on his level of ignorance caused by his beliefs and his level of understanding that he's been developing on the hero's journey. Well said. Good point. And then there are others who can either understand his point of view or they can do something called interpretation. Interpretation means you add on things that aren't there or you leave out things that are there. So when we read, we're doing our best to read carefully word by word without interpretation. That's very different than how we are taught to read at school. When we read a book at school, they say, hey, what do you think Catcher in the Rye was about? And then the clever students realize, oh, my teacher is a Christian, so all I have to do is say, well, it's my interpretation that Lord of the Flies is about Jesus living in your heart, and Jesus loves you. And then if your teacher has the same beliefs and false interpretation, then you'll get an A+. That's not reading, that's not seeing, that's not understanding, that's interpretation. What we're trying to do is to read without interpretation and to see reality without projection. So yes, we all have our own point of view based on our development, and there are people who either understand us or have interpretations. In your opinion, how many types of points of view? That is a good question. That is a good question. That's a very good question, in fact. Yes. So, let's have a look at this question. It's a good one. What we are discovering is there is this birth of the new age that we've been reading about here, where we have we can make a graph. We could say, hey, look, and my pen isn't working. Why is my pen not working? Okay, that works. Give me a minute. So we have the ladder of development on the y-axis, understanding and knowledge. How well are you learning the understanding? How well are you becoming a Jedi? Not just understanding, but verifying your understanding. What higher visions of yourself and reality are you now open to experiencing directly? Not believing somebody else, but actually experiencing the higher dimensions of self and reality. That's knowledge or nous. But on the bottom scale, we have our beliefs that block us. If you believe you're not good enough, you won't ever leave the staircase. You'll be Harry Potter living in chapter 1, the whole book series. You have to also be overcoming your belief. Or if you believe there's no such thing as understanding, or there's no such thing as knowledge, then how can you seek those two things? Therefore, you have to also be overcoming your belief. The overcoming of belief is philosophical midwifery. To identify the false beliefs you carry that you don't even know you carry from childhood that block and limit you and cause the savagery and fucking terrible injustice we see playing out as human beings on a global scale. Do you think the Nazi beliefs of Donald Trump, the racist beliefs of Donald Trump, have an effect on our world? As he continues to strip away healthcare and food from children and setting up concentration camps in Florida, El Salvador, and Guantanamo Bay? Do you think the false beliefs of Netanyahu, that's justifying his starving to death thousands and thousands of Palestinian children, have any effect on the world? Or is everything just the same? This is the cause of problems, beliefs. Therefore, there is a call to adventure in the hero's journey, remember? Call to adventure. The call to adventure is if you realize, and hopefully this is enough of a call to adventure for you, anyone watching, that the cause of problems are false beliefs we carry, and the art of removing them is philosophical midwifery, then you have been given the call to become a Jedi. You have a responsibility, as every human being does, because it's the quest of all men to learn this art that removes the cause of your own problems and the problems that we suffer in the world. That's the call to adventure. This is the meaning of life, not just for me or Socrates, for everyone. We have a responsibility to address our false beliefs that cause our injustice and our unwillingness to change. That's the call to adventure. Equally so, as we develop a freedom from our false beliefs, we are now free to better climb this ladder of understanding and knowledge. Don't we want to understand how to treat people? Understand what benefits all people? That wealth inequality and bombs and genocide doesn't help, not because we believe it to be true, because some old guy said it in church, because we understand it to be true, and everyone can understand it. The same way we can understand that your car needs petrol, not because we believe it, but because anyone can understand it. So we want to understand the nature of the soul, the nature of what harmonizes human souls and human cultures, and we want to experience that in knowledge. Individually, as we go through our own enlightenment to awaken our understanding and awaken our vision of the truth of reality, that's intrapersonal or suprapersonal. It's not a personal experience, it's universal, it's of reality itself. Individually, within our relationships, you don't want to be spending your time with your loved one trying to force them into your crappy belief about love, into your crappy belief about what it means to be a woman or a man or a lover. No. You want to be unified in a development of understanding and knowledge together that you can both move towards. And also as our species. Hey, do we demand understanding from mechanics? Do we demand understanding from surgeons? Do we demand understanding from pilots? Do we demand that they use understanding as well as their experience to benefit the people flying the plane, to benefit the person you're doing surgery on, to benefit the car you're working on? Why the fuck do we not demand this understanding and knowledge and use of it to benefit from politicians, from priests, from imams, from clergy, from kings? In other words, when it comes to morality, ethics, and when it comes to politicians and clergy, why are we so stupid that we do not demand understanding, knowledge, and benefit? Always. Why is it that politicians run on belief? Why is it that priests run on belief? Why is it that clergy and popes and cult leaders and parents say, hey bro, just believe me or you go to hell? That's the cause of human problems collectively. That's why we still have starvation. That's why we still have genocide. That's why we still have war, because not enough people have taken up the hero's journey, the hero's quest to learn philosophical midwifery, awaken understanding and knowledge, and demand it from every single political or spiritual leader. I don't care if you're a Buddhist or a Jew or a Muslim or a whatever the fuck. Everyone needs this, because that's what it means to be rational. That's what it means to be a leader. That's what it means to have an art. So the question from chat is, hey, if this is the model of development, if this is interpretation down here, and this is what we could say learning, maybe up here, can we have different categories or different kinds of interpretation such that we can put every single human being on a graph? How far up your understanding and knowledge are you? How far up the logos are you? Or the love of understanding, what we do here? And how strong along your pathologos are you? Or what version of pathologos do you have? Do you have a pathologos that says that life is all about making money? Do you have a pathologos that says reality is all about trying to be famous? Does your pathologos hate women? Does your pathologos justify punishment? Somehow humans are made better if you put them in a cage or you whip them. Can we have a systematic understanding of all of the different... Now, everyone's individual pathologos is unique, like a snowflake, which is curious. But can we make general categories of false interpretation to recognize people who are at that level, so we can then function as like a doctor of the soul, as a midwife, to prescribe them the right kind of reflection? Hey, you need to get into the symposium. You need to learn more about philosophical midwifery. You need to read this dialogue about Jesus and Socrates. Based on their level of sickness, the same way a doctor does to the body. Hey, you're missing an arm. You need an arm transplant. Your kidney is broken. You need a new kidney. You've got cancer. You need this treatment. Can we do the same to the soul? That's the question of the chatter. A fantastic question. And I hope he carries it for a long, long time. And when he comes to an answer of the kinds of categories of interpretation caused by the different kinds of pathologos, through his own call to adventure to become a master midwife, a Jedi master, I hope when he has that answer, he has joined our Discord and he shares with us his answer to that, because I also have that question. So we are on a quest together. To carry a question of that nature is to be on a quest.
I'm looking for someone to share in an adventure.
Or the hero's journey. So good question, chatter. Be sure to share your insights as you go on this hero's journey. So, for those of you who also share our chatter's question, how many different versions of problems do humans have that cause our false interpretation and problems? Can we recognize that? Can we even make a list? A list of the versions of things that keep us tied to ignorance? That's a good question from our chat. And if you have a similar question, you are in his adventuring party. So it's not a solo quest, keep in mind. We can each carry good questions like that. So with that reflection under our belt, we can shed even more light on what we're reading here. Socrates is saying, a popular remedy to man's ignorance is a direct experience of wisdom or reality itself through the Eleusinian mysteries, or what we would call today an LSD trip, or as what Terence McKenna would say, an heroic dose. And most agreed that the failure to become initiated kept one in a state of mind we call ignorance. Now, the Eleusinian mysteries isn't just the drug trip at the end, there's also the preparation of understanding to make sense of the experience. Well, think about it. If you're going to go to the big Super Bowl game at the end of the year, you probably want to learn about what football is. You probably want to learn the language. What's a quarterback? What's a fourth down? What's a touchdown? Otherwise, you might have this fantastic experience of the greatest game of the year, but without an understanding, it might be confusing. Or scary. Oh, look at all these big scary men fighting each other. I never want to see another Super Bowl game in my life. But the more you understand it, the more you can see about the game, the more you can learn about the game if you're a player yourself, and so on and so on. So, is the development of understanding leading towards an initiation experience of pure being enough to remove ignorance? And the position that we are carrying from our work in midwifery is it's two different things. Therefore, you have sages, but you have the archetypes in Eastern spirituality or Eastern mythology of the drunken master. He's a master, he has an understanding, and he has an experience of wisdom, of reality, but he's still a drunk. Or in Goku's case and Naruto's case, their teacher was a pervy sage. He has these experiences and maybe understanding too. Still a pervert, still has his problem, still has ignorance. Therefore, that's why we do midwifery along with philosophy. And of course, we do dream analysis too, because our dream master is our guide for both. And we do our best to tell others about this because it's for everyone. So that gives us the 4 aspects of the love of understanding, philodianoia, philosophy, midwifery, dream analysis, and mythology. That's super interesting because we've already read Socrates say, hey, you know, if you're in 2025 and you go to college to learn about philosophers, they say that these the Cynic philosophers and the Stoic philosophers were just like me, a Platonic philosopher, even though they don't have metaphysics, philosophy, the understanding of an experience of being. Stoic philosophers, and if you see them on YouTube, you'll hear them talk about, oh, you know, courage is about being strong as you tough out life, and justice is about being true to yourself as you work hard. That's crazy. You're using the language of metaphysics without metaphysics. You're keeping it in the physical world. So, no philosophy, no mythology, no dream work. And we've just said those are 3 of the 4. Oh, welcome, Breezo. And why didn't I see a cool animation when you joined? Okay, I'll have to fix that after stream. But thanks for joining. Now, of course, we also have midwifery. So, Cynic and Stoic philosophers don't have philosophy, don't have metaphysics. They don't have mythology. They're not sharing an understanding of what we're learning here through stories. They don't have dream work. which is the application of the dialectic to unpack the messages from your guru, your guide, your dream master. And the fourth thing that he's missing here that we can add is philosophical midwifery. So they miss all four of the four aspects of what it means to be a true Hellenic. Even though at universities in 2025, they teach that it's the same thing. So our educational system also suffers from ignorance that we have to overcome. Interesting. Anyway, in the chat. From all the discussion, I got several points, namely biological perspective, psychological, social, spiritual, or philosophical, or metacognitive, and rational and emotive perspective. Interesting. Keep going. Go. Very good. Now, should we get into this? Okay. Really quick, because that was a good reflection. All of the things we just mentioned, and excuse me writing with my mouse today because my pen's not working. Philosophy, philosophical midwifery, dream analysis, and sharing it in stories and remembering it, like a mnemonic device, mythology. These are all the aspects of what we call the new art that we're here to learn. Phila, the love of, dianoia, the love of understanding. Dianoia. Noia. So while philosophy is the love of wisdom, the way of reaching wisdom is understanding. But also, we call it philodianoia because the same method, the same structure of thinking called the dialectic, not debate, not like those debate bros on YouTube who think that being clever is using language to in a dishonest way, but dialectic is the structure of the logos, the terms, that's what understanding utilizes. And if you want to unpack the benefit or providence of your dreams, you can't just remember your dreams and take it literally. No. You do dream analysis. You have somebody who's a dream midwife asking you the questions, following the dialectic, questions that use the certain language and a certain structure of questions that's needed for dream analysis. By the way, dreams will tell you what you need to see about your problem, so that can transition into midwifery. Reflecting on the repeating blocks and problems you face, the negative states of mind, the negative actions, the negative thoughts, the self-sabotage that cause your repeating problems that you can't seem to get out of, problems that block you from your most meaningful goals. The questions that the midwife asks you to free yourself from that through understanding is also the structure of the dialectic. In philosophy, and currently we're reading the symposium on our channel, and you can check out the videos underneath on YouTube too to catch up. We're only 2 episodes in. The structure of reflecting on the nature of wisdom, the nature of the brilliant light of being, or in the symposium, the aspect of pure being. So we have the physical world, which we call the world of becoming, that we see through our senses. But there is an eye of the soul called ousia, a sixth sense that is able to directly apprehend itself. That's pure being. So we have the physical world of becoming which is always in change, and the pure realm of being. Now, in the symposium, we look at the fact that pure being is also beauty itself. Not beauty as an adjective that we see in the physical world, a beautiful dog, a beautiful person, a beautiful painting. No, that's beauty as an adjective, descriptive word. If you can have two beautiful girls or two beautiful paintings or a lot of beautiful puppies, then you have to say, hang on a second, what's the one that is the cause of the manyness in our physical world? Now you're into philosophy, because those fundamental nouns, they exist independently of the physical world, exist as aspects of being. So in the symposium, one of the aspects is, hey, when you experience yourself, everything all at once as eternity, as pure being, the brilliant light of pure being, it's the most beautiful experience. We call it self-beauty. So if you want to actually get there, you're not content with just believing some old stupid preacher, oh, you can't know anything, you're just a little bean, you're a small bean, Jesus is much better than you suck, give me your money, and the only way you can know the nature of heaven is when you die, maybe. Fuck you. We want to get there ourselves. We want to have the experience that's called nous, awaken the eye of the soul. The eye of the soul is called ousia, and actually check it out for ourselves, because that being gives rise to a better understanding. And also, if there's a realm beyond the physical realm that's awesome, don't you want to go? Or do you want to be a fucking slave your whole life to some idiot priest or parent, or Donald Trump or Hitler or some guy who supposedly wants you to believe him? Bullshit. Okay, so the aspect of being that is beauty itself is what we study in the symposium, and we apply the dialectic to it. That's making use of understanding. It allows us to prepare ourselves to be open to the experience itself. And then after the experience, you come back and you jump on the Discord and you say, hey guys, I had a vision of beauty itself. Let's talk about it before I forget it. Let's have a discussion about it following the dialectic. So what? So philodainoia, the love of understanding, keep nous up there. Ousia. Is the exact same thing that we employ in philosophy, in midwifery, in dream analysis, in mythology. And when I was addressing our chatter's question, I was focusing on midwifery. I was saying, hey, can you use the dialectic, the structure of thinking itself, to create a model or a paradigm, just as the doctor has a paradigm of a healthy body that he uses in his diagnosis? Can we find, but also a list of all of the illnesses, can we find a systematic, dialectical list of all of the classes of human problems that cause our blocks or cause our interpretations and projections? But from his reflection in the chat, he went up to this level. Said, hey, by the way, are there all different, not sicknesses, but different levels of development of perceptions of reality? So he went to this side of the... Can we have a dialectic or a model or a system that incorporates every single system of understanding and accompanying feeling state that human beings develop through all the way to our final destination. So that we can meet someone who is, let's say, right at the bottom, a nihilist. That thinks there is no physical world and there is no metaphysical world. Everything is an illusion. That's a way of thinking. They also will have a feeling. You'll feel lonely, or you'll feel sad, or you'll feel empty. We said, hey, is there a way of looking at the world purely rationally? Yeah, we can have a rational understanding, but rationality doesn't go beyond our physical world. There's no root cause of rationality that's not known through understanding, but known through nous all at once. The biological perspective, hey, we're all just, monkeys on rocks. We're all rocks flying through space. Materialism. Yes. This systematic understanding of all of the different ways of understanding and experience people go through as we develop, that's called the hypotheses of Parmenides. And on the channel, we've done the introduction and the first hypothesis, but he outlines one hypothesis that stands aloof, and then 4 ways of thinking that thinks that there is a metaphysical reality, and 4 ways of thinking that thinks that there isn't one. Materialism is in here somewhere. Nihilism is right down the bottom. And we're after this one. Knowing the self. Also, we can see the playing out of this dynamic. The dynamic of the movement from ignorance, human beings' allegiance to beliefs, to understanding that awakens the art that we are here to learn, or as we complete the hero's journey, we return with the elixir. The elixir would be the philodianoia, the art of the dialectic. Does that dynamic between ignorance and understanding play out socially? In your relationships? In the evolution of our human species? In the evolution of all species? Historically? Can we find historical figures like Jesus and Socrates that represents the dynamics of our meaning of life, the evolutionary movement from ignorance and belief to understanding and knowledge? Is it played out with historical figures? Isn't that fucking cool? But really though, we can see it playing out in our relationships, as if you are with someone you really care about and you want to be better, you are going to go through this process. That's why we always say any true loving relationship has to have 3 members. It has to have you, your beloved, and philodianoia, because that's a goal you can both be seeking together in your development. So you'll play out this dynamic. You'll have to uncover your false beliefs. Otherwise, you'll try and make your beloved like your mummy and daddy, like your ignorance, like your tyranny. You will be the same tyrant that you suffered to your loved one, because you think that's love. So you'll play it out in your relationships. You'll play it out at work. You'll play it out in your fun and the games that you play. We also play it out evolutionarily, as humans have reached a point in evolution where we either learn philosophical midwifery so we can address human problems, or we go extinct. Simply because without the art of philodianoia, our pathologos problems of our that block us from demanding this from every single leader causes our leaders to be fascists and Nazis and genocidal crazy people. A lot of Christians think that the end of the world is a good thing because that's when Jesus comes back. So they want war. They want to kill the Palestinians. They want there to be Armageddon. So these are all false beliefs we carry from childhood that if we don't learn philosophical midwifery can play out to the extinction of our species. So evolutionarily speaking, we are seeing the dynamics of the movement from ignorance based on beliefs compared to understanding based on knowledge, which gives us the art that can benefit. And also within cultural figures, Socrates and Jesus is nothing other than the playing out of this exact dynamic. Which is why someone who has made this journey, Pierre Grimes, having written a book about these two figures, is so freaking amazing. I can't stress how awesome this book is. Because someone who has rediscovered all of these things because he was such a wonderful, wonderful person, and then realized, oh my God, this is what Socrates and Homer were talking about, became a master of philosophy, but also the only Westerner to be given the Dharma stick, to be appointed the next Buddha within the Korean line of Buddhism, one of the 8 lines that go all the way back to Gautama Buddha. So a appointed Eastern spiritual guru, as well as a master of Western philosophy, together, having completed this journey, having rediscovered the Logos, writing a book when he was 90 at the end of his life about Jesus and Socrates representing this very dynamic is a freaking awesome book. We're very, very, very privileged and very fortunate to have such a person having lived among us and having written a book like this. I can't stress how awesome this book is. Let me check in with chat. It's like level 1. We see the world, we're consciousness. Level 2, we realize that we are seeing, that we are conscious. Oh, I like this. This is great. You're developing a structure. Yes, very nice. I like it. We think, what is consciousness? While being aware that we're thinking about consciousness. Keep going. Keep going. Keep going. Now, the more familiar you get with these dialogues we read, you can take your reflection. What are you doing? You're reflecting on what's most meaningful, the Logos. You're organizing it into a structure, the dialectic. One of the 4 aspects of the art we're here to master is mythology. After you complete this reflection, can you turn it into a little story, a dialogue between 2 people? Pick a setting that represents what you think encapsulates the theme of what you're doing. Maybe pick a really good introductory sentence or paragraph, and then share it with us on the Discord. That's mythology. That's taking your reflection of the Logos, systematizing it into a structure, dialectic, turning it into a story, and making all of the aspects of the story reflect the theme of your talk, the theme of the dialogue. You are engaged right now in mythology. So, round of applause. So you can have a character going through these levels of awakening to consciousness and reflecting about consciousness in some sort of conversation. No, you just don't. Yes, that's also important. One of your characters who might be going through this reflection has to also, because we're human beings, face a counterattack. as your character in your story that hopefully you share with us on Discord goes through this reflection, realizing that there is a development that they are going through individually, and maybe even later wakes up to the fact that we're going through it as a species too. As they go through these reflections on his own level of waking up to his own consciousness, there should be moments in the story, maybe when he reaches level 3, where he tries to shut himself down. That's very important. Because we're not robots. We're not just going through philosophy. We're not just going through the hypotheses of Parmenides. We also have to address our ignorance. And that's where we are in the book right now. Socrates is saying there are some people that think we can make this transition over here. Some people who think we can make this transition from our ignorance caused by our false beliefs we carry to understanding through wisdom, through the Eleusinian mysteries, through the development of understanding and the experience through acid or ergot of being. But what you are seeing and you are experiencing for yourself in real time, that as you develop this, that's not the same as removing this. Because as you progress through this development of understanding, there will be your false beliefs, your ignorance that every human being gets. That's an I. Your ignorance that's caused by your unsuspected false beliefs will come up to try and undermine your progress. That's called a counterattack. Hey, I think too much, or I'm distracting, or I'm an inconvenience, or blah, 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 all sorts. And your one will be unique to you, but that goes to our first question. Here, as we go up, we also are at some level of our pathologos. So we're some point on this graph. Everyone. So, as you spend time reflecting on your model of cognitive development, be sure that when you make it into a story, you include all of the times you tried to, or that voice came in to sabotage yourself. Because you have to learn philosophy, or we're here to learn philosophy, but we're also here to do this as well. How do we use this systematic reflection, the dialectic, the dialogues, conversations, not only to do what you're doing, but also to have the other character in your story ask the main character questions about the way he's shooting himself down to uncover the false beliefs about himself that are inconsistent with what he is seeing. Because you can't carry both. You can't believe I'm no good and also develop a model of evolution, because that means you're being good. You can't have both. You can't believe no one listens to me, but also be a manager, because you have to sacrifice one. Our false beliefs come in to get us to sacrifice the good. That's why we have to do midwifery. So, be sure that you stay tuned to our philosophical midwifery streams that we have here, and you can find archive below to our YouTube playlist. Because as you go through your story or your mythology of somebody developing a structure of development or philosophy, you also better be having him reflect on the blocks that come up. So good work. And be sure to share it with us on the Discord so we can benefit from all of your good work.
I'm looking for share in an adventure.
And that brings us to where we are. Socrates is saying, hey, I want to sub to your channel first. Yeah, sure. You can subscribe on YouTube and on Twitch as well. And you can join the Discord for free. And there's a link below to a free copy of the text. All of the text we're reading as we read them too. Now Socrates is saying, hey, is that the case? Can we just develop wisdom, including the spiritual experience that we used to have in our culture called the Eleusinian mysteries? Is the development of understanding and knowledge also sufficient for removing ignorance? That's what Socrates asked. Let's jump back in. Play the noise. Gives me a chance to have some. Cookies and cream. Curiously enough, says Socrates, at our group's last talk with our friend Quindra and chat, we discussed not only the power of ignorance and its terrible grip upon man, we also discovered the nature of wisdom, and we sought to discover if wisdom, has the power to overcome the worst effects of ignorance. The only popular remedy put forward by most was to become initiated into the Eleusinian mysteries, and most agreed that the failure to become initiated kept one in a state we call ignorance. Jesus comes in. I expected you would add that you philosophers cultivate memory to become more perfect. I noticed that your group didn't explore the nature of sin, but rather the power of the presence or absence of wisdom.
It's sad. And I'm sad
for you. So, he's pointing out, hey, there's one way of thinking that human problems are caused by this thing called sin, and you are saying, no, problems are either the presence or absence of wisdom. Very different, right? And the modern idea of sin is you are just a bad boy. And we can't solve problems because they are just evil by nature. What do the Zionists say of the Palestinians? They are savages. They are human animals. It's not that problems are caused by a lack of wisdom. No. It's because they are innately evil and naughty, and we need to starve them to death and take all their money and resources. If problems are caused by the presence or absence of wisdom, then the only way we would solve problems as a mature species would be, how do we create the conditions for wisdom? And starving children to death does not do that. Having billionaires exist doesn't do that. Having wealth inequality doesn't do that. Having prisons doesn't do that. But if you think that problems are caused because we are innately evil, or we have innate sin, then if you are a bastard, you can use that belief to justify being a cunt. Being violent and oppressive. You are correct there, Jesus, says Socrates. After exploring the extremes, the mean should be easier to unfold. By the way, we're doing a lot of work on mean analogies in the symposium, so check that out. With our questions, we are likely to benefit. And it might even give us a way to grasp the way providence unfolds. Jesus, you are right in that view. It is not often that we are given the chance to see how providence unfolds. Clearly, we have both continued your quest here in the heavens, as I have also been a participant in divine luminosity. Ooh. You refer to being in that state as being in the Isles of the Blessed. We get that from the Republic. Dwelling in the Isles of the Blessed, being in the brilliant light of being. As you know, the paths we travel along are parallel and are illuminated through the divine. As you were commanded to be a philosopher, so I was appointed to fulfill my sacred mission, says Jesus. Our teachings were directed at both common people and an inner circle. We both faced a fierce prejudice against our spiritual paths. You were accused and tried in a public court, and sentenced and died for what you truly are. Just as some say, I too suffered that same fate. Further, our work has continued to flourish. Most important, we both experienced profound spiritual states that shaped our lives and our teachings. It is from this sameness that we can go along the path of comparing not only our teachings, but the way our teachings have been passed on to others. Socrates. That is true, Jesus. And we both saw the depth and power of that prejudice. It springs from a fear of the mind.
Wow!
Wow.
Wow!
A fear of the mind. We saw that earlier in the introduction when the chorus says, hey, don't even have this discussion. Just be a mindless peasant. You can't speak for Jesus or Socrates. Lots of people have tried, and it just causes war. Just shut up. And the anti-chorus says, hey, by the way, do you want to keep an open mind? You want to see where it goes? Is your desire to shut down this dialogue, this relationship, does it come from a fear of mind? And now we have Socrates saying, yes, we both faced prejudices that may, the depth and the power of the prejudice against what we were trying to do comes from a fear of mind. Talking about a bunch of slop. The fear drowns out any voice that seeks a rational approach to the encounter with the divine. A rational approach to the encounter with the divine. Right? What do all oppressive tyrants say? Just believe. Don't understand. You don't allow it for mechanics or surgeons or pilots, but somehow kings and clergy, presidents and priests say you cannot rationally understand what I'm talking about. Just believe me, bro. And then if we allow that, we have the terrible problems we face as a species. What's the fear? The fear drowns out, it's a fear of the mind, and it drowns out any voice that seeks a rational approach to the encounter, not belief, knowledge, with the divine. I too have had followers who even denied it was possible to truly know the furthermost reach of the mind. I went along an ancient path, and others before me had taken. and surely others will follow after me. Everyone in this channel, you're walking an ancient path of Socrates, overcoming the fear of the mind and discovering a rational approach to the encounter with the divine. So, hooray for all of you. As you walk that ancient path. The ancient path that is really the hero's journey. That's you. That's you walking the path. That's you running to your computer to turn on the stream. See? Looks just like you.
Well, you're doing your best. Okay, so sorry, Ben. Go ahead. What were you saying?
I was saying, those who seek that true knowing of the eternal and unchanging may even go beyond that, to that which is beyond knowing. Interesting. That's one of the puzzles we often see in the Platonic dialogues. Often they're about knowing, but then he gives us a little twist like a good Christopher Nolan movie. What's beyond knowing? What's the cause of knowing? What has the knowing experience? Oh. Yet it is obvious that some among... Okay, let's do that again. Those who seek that true knowing of the eternal and unchanging may even go beyond that, to that which is beyond knowing. Yet it is also obvious that some among those who are called our followers deny the light and return to their own darkness. The counterattack. Curious, is it not, that what we bring, others are quick to deny? Right? Last time, in our last stream, we had a chatter who, for some reason, was very quick to deny everything we were saying. You can't prove anything. You can't know anything. It's all opinion. And we encouraged him to check out the other book we're reading, Is It All Relative? Why be so quick to deny what we are offering here? Understanding and knowledge of truth. And a new art that we are here to learn as human beings. Curious, are we not as species? As a species? As animals? As evolving beings? Curious, is it not, that what we bring others are quick to deny, says Socrates on the board. There are some who offer what we never said in order to conceal their fear of the light, fear of the mind, fear of a rational approach to the light, and now fear of the light. Fear seems to be a common theme behind why people reject understanding to stay in the beliefs that they grew up with. While we explore our sameness, you and me, Jesus, we should also turn our attention to those whose fear drives them to escape from the light. True, says Jesus. They run away from what we are drawn to. So they either find a way to escape, or they are drawn to the same thing that we are drawn to. Are we so different from the rest of mankind, Socrates, that our teachings can't work on the many? They run away from the light and hide behind impossible beliefs. They adopt the most outrageous folly as if it were the highest truth. They cultivate a kind of blinding ignorance that leaves no room for intelligible light. Is it true that we share many teachings and practices, or do we differ in the one and not the other? Same teachings and practices, or same teachings but not practices? Same practices but not teachings? What's he mean? Oh, and by the way, those people who are in fear of their own rational understanding and their own light of pure intelligibility, they cultivate a kind of blinding ignorance that leaves no room for intelligible light. Now, we can, that brings to mind, doesn't it, the idea of, in Eastern spiritual practices, the idea of emptying your cup. So we talked about the last chatter from yesterday, came in with all of these certain convictions. I know that there is no truth. I know you can't prove anything. So likely that person is not going to read along with the channel or read along with the book. Hopefully he does. Hopefully that's just misinterpretation because of I'm reading it in chat. So hopefully I've got him wrong. But in the past, there have been people who are very strong in their convictions, which leave no room for learning. So we are discovering one of the states of being, good states of being, is philosophical ignorance, or being stung, as it said in the Meno. Realizing you don't know, so now my cup's empty, I'm willing to learn. Whereas the ignorance people who have a fear of their own mind, a fear of understanding, a fear of knowing the truth of reality, they fill up their cup with a blinding ignorance that leaves no room to pour in learning. Isn't that interesting? Jesus says, I do believe we share a similar public practice, and that much of our teachings are similar but not the same. We both seize upon those moments when we see people receptive and open. Calling our shots here. Off the glass. We both seize upon those moments when we see people receptive and open to being challenged. At those times, we confront their most fundamental beliefs, so that a new and more spiritual level of understanding can emerge. We both urge them to turn to that light that illuminates all things and brings smiles to the wise. Now, this is interesting. Catch people when they're open and receptive. As a musician, this is so important. And about a week ago or so, there was someone, and normally there's an archetype. Men who are older, who consider themselves musicians, and their approach to my playing music is to start being cynical or critical. They are fucking dangerous. That's the sort of person who tried to grab my guitar and punched me in the head because I wouldn't let him take charge. Okay? Disgusting person. As a musician, my job, or one of the things I had to do, is to help people become open and curious, because that's how you can love music. So as soon as somebody starts saying, let me give you advice, no, let me change the topic. Let me play a song. Let me talk to someone else. They are the worst. People who, and similarly with philosophy, people like, let's talk, but they're not open and interested. They're what they're only interested in doing is owning you in a debate. That's the fascist right-wingers. There's no right wing, it's just the pathologos. What we are describing here, people who are carrying a blinding ignorance, fear the mind, fear understanding, that's the political party we call the right wing. It's just the pathologos party. It shouldn't be a political party. It's just the worst aspect of human nature trying to rule the rest of us. When that happens when you're playing music, it's dangerous. What they are saying is we want to catch people when they are open and curious and receptive. And it's at those times we can challenge the fundamental beliefs that prevent them from being in that state all the time. Very key. And there are some people out there who have a charm or a grace and a wit that can disarm that feeling of certainty. Can say things like,
Is this chat full of dumb cunts?
that can disarm that sense of certainty and knowingness by pointing at flaws within their arguments or absurdities that they are doing, or and having fun, making fun.
Where's the joy? Where's the whimsy? Where's the childlike?
That can maybe even create the conditions for that openness and receptivity. That's a really wonderful and high class of being. But it's in that receptivity and openness that we can challenge the fundamental beliefs that prevent them from being open at all times. That's the thing. Oh, you're open and curious. Isn't that a good way of being? You want to understand rather than just spew out your ignorance. Isn't that a better way of being? Because we can both play understanding. Hey, every fascist that's done a debate, bro. What's that web thing at the moment on YouTube? 20 fascists versus one sane person. Even philosophy channels, it's people debating. Fuck that. How about open and curious to play understanding? I disagree. Well, why do you disagree? We shouldn't be disagreeing. If it's understanding, it's together. That's a dialectic. That's the art we're here to master as human beings. Now, a nice way of imagining that is to think of, let's take a belief that is easy to see as wrong. Someone is sexist. All women are whores. All women are...
I've been a bad little girl.
Bad little girls. All women are...
Disgusting. I'm so disgusted.
Disgusting. But maybe they are having a fun interaction in an open and curious state of mind with a woman. Hey, by the way, isn't this a great state of being? Aren't you a better human being? Now, why are you not in this state all the time? What's the fundamental belief, sexist belief behind your way of being and your image of yourself that prevents yourself from being in this state at all times? Wouldn't that be a nice way of doing it? Now, elevate that to your false beliefs that you carry about yourself in the world, that you don't suspect that you have, that blinds your development, because everyone has one. It's easier to see with other people, and it's easier to see with the most ignorant, like sexists and racists and MAGA and fascists and stuff. But we all have it. It's a human thing. So, we both, Socrates, says Jesus, we both seize upon those moments when we see people receptive and open to being challenged. At those times, we confront their most fundamental beliefs, so that a new and more spiritual level of understanding can emerge. We both urge them to turn to that light that illuminates all. All things and brings smiles to the wise. So, he's talking about two different states. The state where you are learning and developing to that universal light of pure being. And then there are those who are familiar with it and have something called wisdom that gives you a smile as you go about your activity. Our difference lies that I challenge those in my circle to enter the kingdom of God, while your circle, Socrates, is society itself. and you seek to bring your fellow man into that light. Further your way, Socrates. Further, your way, Socrates, I believe, achieves the same goal, but in different ways. You lay bare the shortcomings in man's behavior and in the reasoning they use to justify themselves. You offer a way of reasoning that centers in the rational vision of man, by displaying before them an ideal way of reasoning, Socrates, and it brings them to a new, vitalizing sense of truth. You urge excellence in all that is done. What is this but to bring that sense of excellence to their search for a more profound inner way of being? You urge contemplating truth. Whereas Socrates, my work, says Jesus, challenges people's unthinking commitment to an apocalyptic vision and eschatology. Eschatology is a fancy word that means, ontology is the study, eschat is a fancy word for the soul, study of the soul, but also the study of the end purpose of the soul. So a lot of people, especially in Jesus' time, believed the end was near. There's going to be a great apocalypse where the sins of the many will be washed clean by a angry and vengeful God or whatever. So Jesus is saying, hey, Socrates, you don't just talk to an inner circle, you talk to everyone. You lay bare the shortcomings in man's behavior. Philosophical midwifery. This is where you're blocked. And the reasoning you use to justify that injustice. This is your pathologos beliefs that are underlying your injustice and your negative images. You offer a way of reasoning that centers in the rational vision of man. Hey, if you can overcome your pathologos beliefs, says Socrates, through midwifery and dream analysis, you can become a lover of understanding. And that's what it means to be a true man or a true human. Your eye is always on the drama behind justice and injustice. You offer a way of reasoning that centers in the rational vision of man by displaying before them an ideal way of reasoning. He's not just defining it, he's demonstrating it. The two, and we could even fill out the rest. If Socrates is defining something and displaying before them, demonstrating, then we have the start of a puzzle. Because when we look for terms, here we go. Once you are reading a book and you notice a list or an incomplete list, your job is to fill out that list. So we have, you are defining a new rational way of being that overcomes the drama, that looks at the drama behind our problems and the false beliefs that cause our problems. But you also demonstrate it yourself, which means you guys fill out the rest. Is Socrates a walking dialectic? In what way? That's how we look for puzzles. By displaying before them, Socrates, your ideal way of reasoning, it brings them to a new vitalizing sense of truth. It inspires them. You urge excellence in all that is to be done. What is this but to bring that sense of in all that is done? What is this but to bring that sense of excellence to their search for a more profound inner way of being? You urge contemplating truth. Ooh. My work challenges people's unthinking commitment to an apocalyptic vision and eschatology. For the true destiny of man is to be discovered here. The purpose, destiny of man, the purpose of all beings. The meaning of life for all people is to be discovered here and now through self-discovery and not through the destruction of the cosmos. You crazy Jews, you crazy Christians, you crazy Muslims, you crazy Abrahamic religious people, or any cult that thinks this way, that we need to hasten injustice and war and violence. Because maybe that will bring Jesus back, or whatever. These people who think this way have a lot of power in our society because of our inability to pick up on this. It's time to say, hey, listen, no. Self-discovery, understanding, contemplating truth, reaching the destiny of all men. Not blowing everything up, you fucking idiots, is what we need to say collectively. Not only that, let's do some midwifery, son, on why you think this is a good way of being. What's the drama? What's the irrational way of reasoning behind your destruction of other people and our planet? Not hard. They're all on the news. Every single person on Fox News or Joe Rogan's podcast or any of that shit. They're mask off now. They're just openly. Yeah, we're taking away healthcare from people. We're taking away school lunches from children. We're genociding the Palestinians. We're murdering the Ukrainian people. We're taking all the wealth away from everyone and giving it to a handful of billionaires. We're making it impossible for you to have a house or afford rent or afford food. Yeah, we want you to suffer and die. We like it, says everyone in power currently, except for a small group of people who themselves have a challenge, this challenge, to not only learn the truth, the paradigm of the soul, and have a rational understanding of it to use as the paradigm of leadership, but also to learn the art of philosophical midwifery to see why we had those problems to begin with. Otherwise, the Nazis will keep coming back, as they do. Until we address what are the causes and conditions for Nazism, for fascism, for this apocalyptic vision of reality. Gonna do both. That's the call to adventure. And if your refusal of the call is because I'm just using my webcam and not a fancy Twitch camera, then that's the refusal of the call. And if you're the sort of person who makes money doing this, then give me a camera. I have currently, I don't know how many followers, maybe 100? My thing says I have one watching at the moment. So I don't have enough for affiliate on Twitch. So if your refusal of the call is because I have a crappy webcam camera and not a fancy one that makes people look beautiful, then we'll just get me one of those. Donate to the channel. And that is called meeting the mentor. Why not? Meeting the mentor through a decent camera. So that you can eventually return home with the elixir, the art of midwifery. Wait, this way. Here we go. Socrates. So my work, says Jesus, challenges people's unthinking commitment to an apocalyptic vision and study of the soul and meaning of life. For the true destiny of man is to be discovered here and not through, and now, here and now, through self-discovery and not through the destruction of the cosmos. You have expressed our similarity well, Jesus. But I would highlight the issue of practice. You are correct to stress that each of us has a practice. However, my practice is so complete that it is my way of life. Still, I need to say that it is driven by my duty to God, for I have been chosen by God to fulfill the task of being a philosopher.
He better not.
You better.
I'm cute. Like, it's cutie pie.
Okay. There is no higher role, says Socrates, or benefit than my acting out my role in Athens. God chose Socrates to play the role and benefit all as a philosopher. Is he benefiting us now when we need it most? 2025, on the verge of extinction. Yes. How did he know that? What an interesting guy this Socrates is. Yes, says Jesus, we share that kind of practice even though we went along different ways to achieve it. Surely I know you have tried to understand and deal with similar problems, Socrates. So how would you express what you found? However similar we may seem, our interpreters find differences, most startling and extreme. Can there be a way to understand these many interpretations of what we have said and done? Is there something that drives this fragmentation of the Logos into irreconcilable parts? So there is a similarity, but there is the problem of interpreters who come along and interpret or change, add to what's there or leave out what's there, or add what isn't there or leave out what is. And this drives a fragmentation of the Logos. What does he mean by the Logos? Socrates. What I saw many times is that the return to the darkness of shadowy belief was simply they believed that their beliefs were clearer and truer than what we had shown them. Does taking on early beliefs make it too difficult to see what is here to be seen? Or shall it be said that the problems that are manifested during one's earthly existence can only be solved in the afterlife? Or does the fullest expressions of problems that we experience here on earth reveal what you need to see? But you must await death to see if the solutions of those problems truly benefit after death? Here is the difference, right? As we've been seeing in our work in midwifery, whether it's Jesus challenging the blind loyalty to apocalyptic beliefs, or Socrates challenging everyone's false belief and introducing and demonstrating a rational approach to life, a rational approach to the intelligible experience of reality. People have a fear of understanding, a fear of the mind, and return to the darkness, balloons, of shadowy belief because they believe that their beliefs are clearer and truer. thus the need for midwifery. And the difference between the two of them is saying, hey, everything we experience can be seen as a message about what follows if we don't learn midwifery and solve human problems. We don't learn a new rational way of being to follow the logos to truth. Or our experience shows us what happens if we do remove our false beliefs through midwifery, if we do develop an understanding of the divine. We get to experience it. We experience our problems individually and collectively, or we experience wisdom itself. The Isles of the Blessed, as it was called earlier. Whereas people who reject understanding for belief-based thinking, like Christians, say you don't know until you die. Kill everyone, let God figure it out. That's what it means to be a believer. Or we talked about the hypotheses of Parmenides, different levels of development. The fourth hypothesis, you think there is a divine, but the best you can do is be a believer in a group, chanting Kumbaya. You can't actually experience it while you're here. That would be the third, second, and first hypotheses of Parmenides. Whereas Socrates say, no, yeah, you can, of course. You're supposed to experience it while you're here. Take a look around, son. Learn about it. Master it. That's where you're going. If what we can do here is develop a mastery of understanding, then why not gain an understanding of the divine by experiencing it while you are here and reflecting on it? Hopefully with your friends, hopefully on this channel.
That's where you live, in the weirdo pool. You're going.
Okay. So, says Socrates, does taking on early beliefs make it difficult to see what's here to be seen? Pathologos. Shall it be said that the problems that are manifested during one's earthly existence can only be solved in the afterlife? Or does the fullest expressions of problems experienced on earth reveal what you need to see? But you must await to death to see if the solutions to those problems truly benefit after death. Oh, there should be a link to the Discord below in the Discord panel. Or if you're watching on YouTube, I don't know how the live stream has it. Just check out any one of the previous videos on YouTube, and you'll find a link to the Discord below. Let me know if you can, if it works. I hope so. I don't want to go through all of my past videos and update that link. Please, please, Jesus. Please, Jesus, make the Discord link work. So if you're watching it on Twitch, it's below. On YouTube, one of the past videos. There's a link below. And you can shout me a coffee too. There's a link to shouting me a coffee. Which is good because I'm almost out. Awesome. Thank you, Baresco. Jesus replies, yes, Socrates, I do see why you came to those issues. I like the way you are reviewing this task of ours, Jesus, says Socrates. However, it leaves me with another question. When you want to study anything as a whole, should we not be careful that we start off identifying each of its parts? For surely any interpretation should treat each part or piece of the whole with integrity, or else one's efforts will fail. Ooh, whole and part. Those familiar with the Parmenides in any way will recognize whole and part is the first category of thinking. Hooray, it worked. This is awesome stuff. Hooray. Thank you. Thank you all. Hooray.
Imagine people changing their positions and improving for the better.
Hooray. Whole and part. So, in those hypotheses of Parmenides, which is the dialectic applied to all of the possible ways human beings can think and experience, he uses the same logos all the way through. In other words, he uses the same terms, what we call the selfers. Whole and part, same and different. These are the basic units of thinking and perception. Everything you see is a part or a whole. Everything that you see or think is same or different. Same to something and different to another thing. So the difference is the way that they relate. So the second hypothesis, for example, is the greatest whole of all of the parts. That's why it's called oneness or unity. And that's why it's the greatest experience. Whereas in the third hypothesis, where we get providence, like for instance our dreams, our dream master sees our life as a whole, but then communicates through our dreams information about us to us because we're experiencing our existence as a part through time. Whole and part connected providentially. Whereas, that's the third hypothesis, it's inverse. Remember, there are only 9. The seventh hypothesis is this connection between whole and part is actually negative. The world is a battleground between the forces of good and the forces of evil. Therefore, as Jesus was saying, the best we can do is kill all the non-believers because they are sinners, or they are heathen, or they are goyim, or they are heretics, or they are savages like the Palestinians are being called, or they are vermin as the Nazis called the Jews, or they are barbarians as the white Americans called the black Americans in the 60s, and so on and so on. In group, our group. There are 2 different things, they're not joined, and the way they relate is negatively. Whereas the logos, which is our next stage of development, is realizing that what Socrates is saying here, every experience we have, all the dramas we have, all the dreams we have, are messages that are providential, the best kind of relationship between whole and part. That's the difference. The third hypothesis, that we awaken through this love of understanding. So, because we have a little bit of an understanding of the Parmenides, we recognize, there is a system of thinking behind Socrates. We're not just listening to what he's saying, we are wondering if there is a structure behind his thinking so that we can think like Socrates. So the first thing is, what is our sameness and differences? That's been what we've been talking about. Now that we are going to explore differences or philosophy, break it down to understand the parts and the whole, what's the first question that Socrates is asking? Whole and part. In each of the hypotheses of Parmenides, what's the first idea he talks about? Parmenides, who was Socrates' teacher, Socrates was about 20, I think. Parmenides was his early philosophy teacher, and he says, you need to learn the dialectic. And Socrates says, really? Why? Because if you don't learn the dialectic, that's understanding, that's dianoia, that's the method of reaching the truth of reality. So you better learn the dialectic, son. And Socrates says, well, can you give me an example? But the highest example. Give me a dialectic on the self, what you think the self is. And that's the opening of the Parmenides. So thank goodness Socrates asked that question, because he's like, okay, here is the true nature of self. This is the first hypothesis. And then the person he's talking to says, well, I don't think that's likely. And then Parmenides says, okay, you don't think that's likely? I'm going to give you all of the other possible ways of thinking and experiencing reality that anyone can have. And I'm going to show you how all of them are even less likely. So if you follow this whole thing, you can go through all of the stages, all of the 8 hypotheses, realize they're all wrong, being led to the first, knowing the self. And at each of them, he starts with whole and part. Here, Socrates is starting with whole and part. So, if we met him when he was 20 or 19, when he met Parmenides, and here he is after completing his life, which apparently was a role given to him by God. Here he is in heaven. Has he mastered it? The way of thinking that Parmenides demonstrated to Socrates that he said is necessary to know the truth, has Socrates fully learnt it and integrated it so that even when he leaves this plane of existence, it's still part of the way he thinks? So that if he meets Jesus in heaven, the first thing he's going to say is, we want to explore something, let's do whole and part. If that's the case, and we all know that we are only here for a limited amount of time in this life, should we be spending our time learning something that we can bake into our way of being that will benefit us, not in making money or manipulating people to get lots of money or get lots of fame? That doesn't benefit us after this world. But could it be we are here to learn a way of thinking that benefits us in this world, but also beyond? Could that be the learning we are all here to do? Could that be the call to adventure? And we can ask, how well has Socrates done that? If his opening question that they're going to explore together is, okay, we're going to explore where we're same and different really. Let's start by whole and part, shall we? How well has Socrates done? And how well can we do if we can look for what he says as well as a structure behind how he thinks? Lots of fantastic things to wonder about as we get into this book. I think it's about 3 hours, so let's call it there. I might have another stream today. Later on, we may get into another book or the midwifery book. So if you are new to this channel, make sure to like and subscribe on Twitch and YouTube, and join the Discord if you want to get a notification when we go live, because we might be having another stream today, because no gym for me today. So I might do this instead. So thank you so much. Lot to wonder about. Fantastic questions. We have some challenges. We have a chatter who's been given a challenge to write a dialogue. And if you join the Discord, you might be able to benefit from all his hard work. Play. Because he might end up sharing that dialogue with us. And yeah, lots of great questions today. Lots of great things to wonder about in the text. And thank you all once again for joining me. And I hope to see you in the next one.